Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be tying a bead body, which is basically it's a sculpin pattern, and it uses a wire shank. You can use a Senyo's intruder shank. I just like to make my own, and I just put a little bend in the eye, just like that. I have a video on how to make the shanks, so go check that out before you watch this. Okay, so we have the shank, and for the thread, we're just using black GSP 100 denier, what I always use. And then we're going to be using some pearl diamond braid or flat braid. You can use chenille or dubbing, but I just like the flat braid just because it's flat and doesn't build too much bulk to the fly. Okay, then we're just going to need some olive zonker strip. You're going to need a bead of any choice. Any color choice, a toothpick. Okay, we will also be using a pheasant tail. You need one with some pretty long fibers. We're just going to be doing a dubbing loop. Okay, and then you'll be needing a dubbing loop tool and then some wax for your thread. And probably the most important thing, I'll be using some 50-pound braid. You can use 60 if you want, but I like 50-pound because it does flex a little bit and just gives the fly some nice movement. Okay, so we're just going to start off by building a nice thread base and closing up this wire loop here. Just want to wrap over that nice and tightly. Okay. Like that, pretty simple. Just wrap over your thread a couple times just to secure it. So. Okay, now you're going to take your braid. This is about, I don't know, probably way too long. I'm just going to cut this in half actually. Okay, so you just make about, I don't know, 2-inch loop with your braid. Okay. And you can make this braid as long as you want, but, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, just kind of however long you want your zonker to be. Okay, and then you're just going to take your hook. This also doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter what color, what hook you use. I do like sewing with a little bit heavier wire, especially if I'm fishing for steelhead. So all I do is I just take this hook, make a loop with my braid, feed the loop through the eye of the hook like that. Okay, and then I take this loop here, put it around the hook just like that. Kind of like just the way you're doing like a palmer knot. Okay, and then I just twist the loop like that, and then I slip it back over the hook. Okay, and as you can see, that makes a loop right over top of it, and that's where we're going to be putting our zonker strip in. Okay, now just take your bead. We won't be securing it yet. We're going to wait on that. Okay, but you want it to be about a bead's length away from there. Just about like that. Okay, let's do a couple loose wraps. Ow, just took myself. Let's do a couple loose wraps. Just going to pull it out a little bit tighter. And now we'll really tighten down our wraps on that braid. Pull it. Okay, and we will be putting this braid through the eyes. I like to do this, especially with steelhead. Just like that. With most of the steelhead flies that I do this. You don't need to. You can just use glue or whatever just to secure it. But I like to do this. Just makes a nice strong connection. Okay. And now another thing about this fly, you can make it however you want. You don't need to add flash boot to it. I'm not going to. You don't have to. In the last video that I had, that one had no flash. It was just like a reddish bead on the back here. And then, yeah, exactly what I'm doing now. So, just with a red bead instead of an orange one. But you can use whatever colors you want, whatever bead colors, whatever zonker colors. Okay, but you just really want to secure that zonker down on there with some really nice tight wraps. Okay, make it just a little bit longer than the hook, than the hook's eye. So have it right there. Let's take my scissors and cut the zonker at an angle. Like that. Boom. Okay. So now, before we do anything else, I'm just going to show you how to do this. Okay, so you take a little... Actually, we're just going to use this. We're just going to use this toothpick. We're just going to kind of pick that little loop that I showed you before loose. And this is what we're going to fit our zonker in to secure it to the hook, so that it's not just flapping around and getting all foul hooked and stuff. So I'm going to pick this loop loose here. Okay, just like that. Okay. It's probably not a good idea to use that, but... Okay, now I take a pair of small needle nose pliers and put them through that little loop. This is probably the most difficult part of this fly. And it's really an easy fly to tie and fish. Okay, so I just loop my needle nose pliers through there. Grab my zonker. Ah, dang it. Do this again. Okay, I'm gonna need to find a better tool to do this with. So I just got this piece of wire here. Okay, I go under my loop, capture the loop there. Now I take these pliers, put them through that loop, just like that. Okay. Now I grab the zonker with my pliers and hold on to it tightly. Okay, I just pull the zonker through that loop. Okay, make sure all the hairs are aligned and everything, and then I just pull the hook down, and it should cinch up that loop nicely. And it should pull that zonker straight down towards the hook and get it around the bead there, just like that. That's perfect. Okay, now I just pull everything back, make some nice tight wraps around that zonker. Okay, now I take my pearl braid, tie that in. And now for this thread, you can use white, you can use black, doesn't really matter what color. You shouldn't even really see it in the end of the fly anyways, so. Okay, but you just wrap this pearl braid on there. And you could also substitute this multiple things in for this pearl braid. You can use tinsel wrap. You can use, I forget what it's called, but stuff that you use on zonkers and there's a bunch of different things that you can use instead of this. So let's tie that braid down. Like that. Now just come in with some scissors, cut that braid off. Okay, then you just wrap that on nice and tightly. Make sure it's not going to move. Okay, now I make a very small dubbing loop. Okay, so I just make the loop like that. Now I take my thread, I go under the loop and over the loop once, then twice. Like that. Okay. Now I just take some dubbing wax, and whenever I'm using dubbing with hair or feathers of any kind, I always use dubbing wax. It just helps everything stay on the hook shank and the loop. Okay, now I just take my dubbing loop tool, slip it right there. Okay. Now with this pheasant tail, you want some pretty long pieces, and you want quite a bit. This is probably about 20 or so pieces. And I just want this to extend back over the bead like that, or to the point of the hook. Okay, so those ones are about perfect. Just cut them off. And I just want to align all the tips so that they're nice and aligned. Just like that. Okay, I'm just going to measure it again. Trim this one a little bit. Okay, now I put them into my waxed dubbing loop. Ow. I really got myself there. On the thumb. Be careful of that hook point. If it's hanging back there, you really want to be careful. Gosh, that went far in. Okay, but as you can see, I have my pheasant tail in right here. And I just want to make sure that all the butt ends are aligned, because that means that the tip ends are aligned too. Okay, now I'm just going to spin my dubbing tool to just get those feathers nice and secured down. Now really you can just put the pheasant tail on, piece by piece, but that just takes way too long for me, and I just don't have the patience to do that, so I like to make a dubbing loop with it. Okay, and I'm just going to wrap this just like I would any hackle. So I wrap, pull the fibers back, then make another wrap, and you want the majority of these fibers to be on the bottom of the shank, just like that. Now I just catch my dubbing loop, tie it off. Take a pair of scissors, cut my dubbing loop off. Now I just secure wrap those fibers. Okay, just like that. Makes a nice sparse fly, and that just gives it a lot of action. Now you can put rubber legs right on top here instead of the pheasant tail, or you can even just add it like that. And you know what? Let's do that. I think I've got one here. Yep, perfect. I got 2 rubber legs right here. We're just going to put these rubber legs on here just because it makes it look good. Now on the original, I don't think I used rubber legs, but you can if you want. So I just want to split those in half. Just like that. Okay, now I'm going to do a figure 8 over these, so I go 1 wrap over. Okay, pull the rubber legs out, then I go 1 wrap behind them. Then I go 1 wrap over them again, pull them tight. Now I just wrap down on the other side, just like that. pull down really tight and those legs aren't going anywhere. Okay, now I just make sure that they're both the same length. Gotta trim that other side pretty good. Boom. Just like that. They should be about the length of the zonker. Okay, now, last step, we're going to make another dubbing loop. A little bit longer than the other one. Those rubber legs are in my way. Okay, do the same thing. Put the thread over the dubbing loop. Then pull it back down. Okay, now I wrap right up to the eye. And now I'm going to wax my thread again. Just a nice coating of wax. And I'm actually going to be using the zonker again for this. And I just want a small chunk of it to use for this dubbing loop. I only want about that much. A little less than I have on for the tail. Okay, and you could use an olive crosscut zonker. That's perfectly fine. I just don't like to because it makes a little bit too much bulk for me. And you know, in kind of a river that's fished a lot, you know, you don't want a huge fly. You just kind of want a nice, small, subtle presentation. And that's kind of what this fly gives. So then we just cut that fur off the leather strip. Okay, and we want as little of those butts on there as possible to give it kind of a less of a chenille look when you spin it and more like a crosscut zonker look. Okay, I'm just going to angle my camera down a little bit so you can see that. As you can see, those butts are pretty small on there. Just going to make sure that they're all nice and even. Okay, now I just spin it. Just like that. And I just spin it, I don't know, maybe 20 times. Not that much, but you just want it to be pretty good looking. Okay, probably right about there would be good. Now let's take a toothpick or something. Just pick all those loose fibers out. Just get everything kind of opened up. And looking kind of like a little feathered hackle. Okay, now I'm just going to wrap this just like I did those other feathers. If you have a rotary vise, it's a little bit easier. Sorry if I nicked the camera a little bit. Okay, I made kind of a long dubbing loop here. Now every time I wrap, I just pulled all the fibers back. Make my next wrap, pull the fibers back. Make my next wrap, pull all the fibers back. Okay, until right about there. Right until where my thread is. I just tie off my dubbing loop. My thread just broke. It's okay. Might have been pulling a little bit too hard there. Okay, I'm just going to cut this dubbing loop off. Just like that. Okay, really pull on my thread just to make sure that everything is nice and tight down there. And then I'll whip finish. About a 7-turn whip finish. Cut my thread. And now the last step, we're just going to secure this bead to where we want it. So we're just going to pull everything back. Just like that, so you can kind of see the bead. Now I just move the bead to the middle of the braid, and I just shove that toothpick in that hole there. Okay. Now just break the toothpick like that. And then you can come in with a pair of scissors. Just kind of cut the butt end of that. Just like that. Okay, now that bead is nice and secured. It's not going to go anywhere. And you have an excellent little bead fly. Now I'm just going to sweep all those materials back. And this is an excellent fly for clear water, or if you're going to be fishing in a place that gets fished a lot. And I like to swing this fly with my switch rod, or you can use a spay rod. You could also strip the streamer in. I don't really like to, though. It's kind of more meant for swinging. And it's a fly that I made up. I've kind of been making up a lot of my own flies recently. And this is kind of a mix between 2 or 3 different kind of flies. I just kind of looked online and just saw a couple and just kind of combined them. But so this is basically what I've come up with. And in my last video, I hooked one on this fly. It just had a red bead instead of an orange bead. But yeah, so here's the bead body fly. I hope you enjoyed this video. And make sure you tie this fly well and fish it well. And make sure to like and subscribe. And watch some of my other videos. Turn on the bell notifications to see whenever I post new videos. I post about every week, once a week. And so, yeah, stay tuned.